On Friday morning, following the school Eucharist, which always happens in here at 8:25 on a Friday morning, I left and I went up and I visited one of our second grade classrooms. And on a shelf, the class had created an altar of sorts to celebrate another variation of what we celebrate this weekend, this great feast of All Saints. The children had explored the Mexican Day of the Dead tradition called Dia de los Muertos. I speak no Spanish, they taught me that, so I'm very sorry. This Day of the Dead, where families and friends gather to pray for and remember those who have died. And it's viewed, as I'm sure most of you know, in Mexican culture, not as a day of sadness, but as a day of celebration, because their loved ones awake and they celebrate with them. Fake skeletons are dressed up in funny clothes to mock the idea that death is something to fear, kind of like our own costumes and trick-or-treating. Pictures of those loved ones who have died are set next to plates of their favorite food, as families will gather to feast together, the living and the dead, one body in Christ. And letters are written by the living to express their love for the dead. I thought you might like to hear a few letters that our children in one of our second grade classes have written to their loved ones. Dear great aunt, we never met, but I have heard great stories about you. It sounded like you were really cool. I love you so much. Love, Noah. Dear Oscar, I miss you so much. You were an awesome dog. What's it like in heaven? All of the family misses you, even Daddy. Say hi to Ben's fish for me. Ben and I still miss you. Oscar, I love you. Dear Gagai, I know that we have not seen each other for about a year now, but I know we will see each other someday. We will both have a great life. We can celebrate on November 1. We will have candles and pictures of you. You will have a great life in heaven. Love, Maeve. Dear great-grandpa, I know we have not met, but I like to fish, and I like to snorkel, and I like to spear things. Love, Craig. Dear Captain, you were the best. I love to tell stories about you. It's almost Halloween, and I remember when I dressed up as a bride, and we ate candy together. I love you so much. You are the best. Love, May. These letters are their prayers. They are prayers that link these children not only to God, but to their history, to those who have loved them and nurtured them, who have taught them and prayed with them, one generation to the next. And in their beautifully innocent way, these children remind all of us who are still here that our words and our actions, our beliefs and our values matter. You and I have been set apart by Christ in our baptisms to do the work of saints, to love our enemies, to do good to those who hate us, to bless those who curse us, to pray for those who scare us. We are to give to everyone who begs from us, and to do to others what we would like them to do to us. And this weekend, we pause. We just kind of take a break to remember the ordinary saints who have shown us how to do such love, how to make Christ's vision of love a reality. You know, we remember those saints who make us better people than we might not be without them. Those saints who stand up to fear and they face it head on, showing us how to love courageously in spite of the perils and dangers of this life. Those saints who never give up because they know God never gives up on them. Those saints who stand at the grave of Lazarus and expect God to bring life out of death and light into the dark. Those saints who measure life by the quality of their love and nothing less. Indeed, we remember those saints who have lived in the trenches of your everyday lives, where little things matter the most. Maybe just a little thing to you and to you alone. And you will never forget the influence those saints have had on your soul and on your faith. The kind of influence a grandfather had one Halloween night eating candy with his granddaughter dressed as a bride. These are the saints who have joined that great multitude that no one can see, no one can count, from every nation, from all tribes and peoples and languages, the souls of the righteous. Suffer no more as God wipes away every tear from their eyes, holding them in the embrace of God's own heart. Well, St. Mark's has bid farewell. And when I say that, that means the clergy of St. Mark's have participated or officiated at 19 services in this past year since last All Saints. Folks who have been resurrected into the embrace of Christ's waiting arms. And this morning, we're going to pause briefly to give God our thanks and praise for the gift of their lives. A candle will be lit from the Paschal candle, which is this, as you know, this great symbol of sainthood, of Christ's light. It shines in the dark. And I invite family members and friends who are here with you to stand as you received your loved one's candle, and then you can just be seated when we move on to the next family. Mark Waldron, 75, was born on January 1st, 1944, and died on January 9th. Raised in Boston, Mark graduated from Boston College and Babson College before taking a job with Pratt Whitney up in Connecticut. One day, during a training session, another Pratt Whitney employee, a woman named Donna, who had flown up from the other Pratt Whitney location down here in Palm Beach Gardens, she caught Mark's eyes. It was love, just meant to be from the very start, Donna says and remembers. Donna also now works and has worked as a teacher's assistant here at St. Mark's for many years. Well, the Waldrons married shortly after 1992, and Mark was transferred to Florida, where the Waldrons gave birth to their son, Luke. And although a bit older than the other dads, Mark coached t-ball and baseball teams and nurtured his son in the ways of being a good man, a person of humility with a servant's heart. He loved sports, history, and politics, but mostly he loved the simple, everyday moments in life. Quiet dinner at home, watching TV with Donna by his side, celebrating the milestone in Luke's life as their son graduated from St. Mark's School, Cardinal Newman, the University of Florida, and his acceptance into law school up at Florida State. A man of abiding faith in Jesus Christ, Mark's life with his testimony to the gift of life itself. John David Elric was born November 1st, All Saints' Day, in 1984, here in Palm Beach Gardens, and he died on April 25th in Joplin, Missouri, at the age of 34. A graduate of St. Mark's School, John finished Palm Beach Gardens High School before graduating from South University with a bachelor's degree in healthcare management. He was working as a forensics accountant at the time of his death, which came unexpectedly through a heart attack. John loved the simple things in life, including, most especially, his family and friends. As a youth, he loved baseball, and although shy, he had many friends. He always came to the defense of other kids who were being picked on, and had a soft heart that led him to care deeply about others. His hobbies included fishing, boating, hunting, and watching sports on television, especially Florida State. He leaves behind his longtime girlfriend and partner, Virginia Clone, as well as his mom, Linda, and his dad, Dave, his brothers, Ed and Chris, sisters, Allison and Karen, and grandparents, Bill, Lee, and Brad. John Joseph Havlicek was born in Martins Ferry, Ohio, on April 8th of 1940 and died in Jupiter Hospital on April 25th at the age of 79 after battling Parkinson's for the last few years. Unquestionably one of the greatest basketball players to grace an NBA court, the legendary Hondo, a nickname he enjoyed since childhood, led the Boston Celtics to 8 NBA championships over 16 years. Drafted by the Celtics in 1962, some of you might know this, as well as by the Cleveland Browns the same year. After playing his college ball at Ohio State, Havlicek never left Boston, where he became the team's all-time leading scorer and a 13-time All-Star. While the sporting world will always remember John for his athletic accomplishments, his family and friends will always remember him as captain, a humble, faithful, and loving husband, dad, grandfather, and friend who never lost his roots in the simple life he knew as a young boy in rural eastern Ohio. His wife, Beth, whom he met at Ohio State, was by his side for nearly 52 years. And together the Havliceks raised Chris and Jill, and eventually their family grew to include 7 grandchildren, 3 of whom attend St. Mark's School. John partnered with many charitable causes, but the Genesis Foundation for Children was closest to his heart, having hosted a fishing tournament for 35 years. A man of deep faith, but quiet faith in God. John was raised in Roman Catholic, but he and Beth found their spiritual home in the Methodist Church, a bit in the Presbyterian Church, and thank you landed in the Episcopal Church. Bertha June Hoag was a woman who answered to many names. B-Bug, Junebug, June, Bertha, Mom, Grandma. Born in Murfreesboro, Tennessee on January 27th of 1938, Bertha died on May 30th at the age of 81. She moved to North Palm Beach from Grove City, Pennsylvania in 1977 with their daughter Leslie and her husband Rusty as they were raising their family. While Junebug was the heartbeat of the family, she was also a professional florist whose amazing displays graced the parties and weddings of many a Palm Beach gathering. The flowers she arranged for her granddaughter Leslie's wedding in our own Peace Chapel are still featured in photos on the website of the Peace Chapel. Her family describes B-Bug as strong-willed, generous, very prim and proper, with a strong moral compass, very stoic, and very opinionated. She gives advice. She doesn't take advice. Leslie once told me, but not a moment ever went by when I didn't know that my mom loved me and my family with every ounce of her being. A lifelong Episcopalian, B-Bug was confirmed at St. Paul's Church up in South Pittsburgh, Tennessee, which is just down the mountain from Sewanee on the way to Chattanooga. Edna Koenig was born on July 16, 1944, and she died on June 7th at the age of 74. Raised on Long Island, Edna met her beloved husband Ken some 60 years ago while attending Luther League at St. Paul's Lutheran Church in Valley Stream, Long Island. Their 53-year marriage gave birth to Keith, who brought into their lives the daughter they never had, Lisa, and their granddaughter, Kylie. Kylie's nickname for Edna was Mimi, who taught Kylie while they were cooking together one day that what happens at Mimi's stays at Mimi's. Although she was the disciplinarian at home and she was nobody's fool, Edna loved to entertain, and her home was always filled to overflowing with friends and family and food. When the Koenigs retired to Florida, they found their way to St. Mark's, where Edna delivered Meals on Wheels, delivered dinners to our homeless guests staying here at St. Mark's through Family Promise, and made many friends with her warmth, her humor, and her kindness. As Edna's health failed during the past year from an accidental fall, she never lost her faith, and she always looked forward in hope. "I have no regrets," she would say, and she died as she lived, doing things her way. "Take me to hospice now," she tells Ken one morning in early June as she was home recovering. So Ken did exactly as she asked. Within hours, she was settled in, and the family spent the rest of the evening reminiscing about her life. And as only Edna could orchestrate, she died a few hours after everyone left her side, just the way she wanted. Peacefully in the open arms of Christ, her death, a testament to her faith in Jesus. Richard Allen Feldon was born on August 15th of 1931 and died on June 7th. After growing up in Darien, Connecticut, Dick attended Northwestern University in Evanston, Illinois, where he graduated with a degree in business administration. A U.S. Marine, Dick served after college in Japan and Korea, and upon discharge began a 39-year career with Procter & Gamble in Cincinnati, where he was most proud of being on the team that created Mr. Whipple and the Please Don't Squeeze the Charmin campaign, as well as creating the Bounty Quicker Picker Upper campaign. He's survived by his dear wife, Diane, who I heard 2 days ago fell and broke her arm, so maybe she's not here. She had intended to be here, so keep her in your prayers. And he's survived also by his sons Richard and Andrew and daughters Leah and Jill and their families that include 4 grandchildren. Raised Episcopalian, Dick was kind of a Renaissance man who loved sports, military, history, music, theater, travel, and people. Dick even once served as a councilman and vice mayor of Terrace Park, Ohio. Loved by many and a wonderful friend who was always kind to others in the life of any party, Dick is best known to St. Mark's as one of our wonderful CEOs, Christmas and Easter only. But he loved knowing they could always walk in these doors and felt home. Evelyn Maury Price. Evelyn was born on February 1st of 1931, and she died on June 27th at the age of 88. Since her death, the 10 a.m. service has never felt quite right. Evelyn, a lifelong Episcopalian, always sat exactly where you're standing, maybe a row back, maybe in a couple, but right there, and never missed. And only when she did, she was on her way up to Port St. Lucie visiting her daughter Michelle and attending church there. All of the clergy felt her warmth and love as she walked through the line after church, asking us to pray for her or to pray for her daughter or a friend facing a challenge in the coming week. Born in West Palm Beach, Evelyn married her husband Woody and raised their daughters Michelle and Corky. They were kind of a first family at St. George's in Riviera Beach back in the day. And while she worked at many different jobs during her 88 years, her favorite day was Sunday, as this day pointed to the 2 most important things in her life: Jesus and the Miami Dolphins. God's going to be wearing a Dolphins jersey. I just know it, she once told me. Evelyn's faith, however, is not easily forgotten. Even during her brief battle with lung cancer last spring, she was never afraid and always spoke deeply of her abiding trust in God's love, a saint indeed. Josephine Mary Wiley was born on February 2nd of 1927 and died on July 17th, 2019. Born and raised in the Philadelphia area, Jo was married to Robert and the mother of four, Barbara, Christina, Robert, and Lorraine. Jo was the kind of mom who started water fights that ended up with so much water from the hose that eventually got used in the basement of the house that panic set in. "Hurry up and clean this mess up before your dad gets home, or I'll be in all kinds of trouble," she would say. She was also the kind of mom who left the Roman Catholic Church when her parish priest said her kids would be going to hell if they became Episcopalian. So guess what Jo did? She joined the Episcopal Church. When the Wileys moved to Palm Beach Gardens, Jo made meatloaves for years down at St. George's and worked at our thrift shop too. She tap danced her way into old age as a golden tapper and joined the Red Hat Society to celebrate friendship and life. Although suffering from congestive heart failure, Jo was always ready to receive our Eucharistic visitors who faithfully bring communion at home on a weekly basis. But as you would expect from someone like Jo, our visitors always left her home feeling as though she had ministered to them more than they to her. It's an honor that her sister Gloria and some of the family is with us this morning. Guy Wyndham Wyatt was born into the Church of England in Ealing, Middlesex, England on August 24th, 1937, and died peacefully after a long illness at his home in Palm Beach Gardens on August 3rd. Raised in a large family, Guy was one of 10 siblings. He married his girlfriend, Hilary Ann, and they enjoyed nearly 60 years together, having been married on September 19th of 1959. The couple left England in 1982 to take on Myers Sod in Riviera Beach. After changing the name to Myers Turf, Guy grew the company to become a very successful gardening and landscaping business with a wonderful staff that many of us have visited many times. When he retired, a beautiful British racing green Bentley caught his eye in a motorsport magazine. Always a car enthusiast, Guy fell in love with the 1929 4.5-liter Bentley and enjoyed several years attending shows with her and Hilary, the two loves of his life. Guy's life and memories live on with his devoted wife Hilary, with numerous nieces, nephews, godchildren, and special friends, Pauline, Elder, Callie, and Kathleen. The Wyatt's relationship to St. Mark's is not only through worship, but also through Hilary's participation in the Daughters of the British Empire, which held social gatherings and fundraisers in the old parish hall here at St. Mark's for many years. "I couldn't have married a better man," says Hilary. Jill Rosemary Duke was born on December 6, 1932 in London and died on August 11th here in West Palm Beach at the age of 87. A lifelong Anglican, Jill epitomized a beatitudinal life, a life lived to please God, and in pleasing God cared for so many others. Jill fell in love with her beloved Keith as a teenager attending church youth groups. They married when Jill was 21, and those two were inseparable. Two peas in a pod, two birds of a feather, cast from the same mold. Whatever the slang, the Dukes were a match made in heaven. The Dukes had two children, Tim and Jennifer, before moving to Poughkeepsie in 1963 with Keith's work at IBM. Once in the U.S., Jill earned a nursing degree and worked for several years in the VA hospital. They then moved down here to Florida with IBM in '83 and brought them to St. Mark's Church, where Jill served in almost every imaginable capacity. She worked for a period in the church office. She was a member of vestry. She was a prayer warrior with the Daughters of the King, a member of the Altar Guild, a member of the Daughters of the British Empire, an avid student of the Bible, and a volunteer for anything and everything St. Mark's. Keith died in 2011, but Jill was surrounded by her family at home and at St. Mark's. Surely, Keith and Jill are walking hand in hand in heaven as they walked hand in hand here on earth. Virginia Russell Aldred was born in Berwyn, Illinois on July 14th of 1944 and died in Palm Beach Gardens on September 3rd at the age of 75. Her family moved from the Chicago area to Vero Beach shortly after her birth. She attended Florida State University, where she met and married her husband of 56 years, Richard. Ginny graduated with a degree in elementary education in 1965 and spent the next 40 years teaching young children to read. She is the founder and first head of St. Mark's School, which began as a preschool in 1979. Ginny's love for the children was a love born of God's grace, and her DNA has set the character of St. Mark's in stone forever. Upon leaving St. Mark's, she spent many years teaching over at the Benjamin School. The Aldreds have 3 daughters, Chrissy, Kim, Katie, speak of their home here in Palm Beach Gardens with great affection and wonderful memories. The front door to the Alfred home was always opening and closing with friends and family who knew Ginny's fridge would be full and also knew that dinner was served every night at 6 o'clock sharp. Ginny's death was sudden and very unexpected, to the shock of her family. She leaves behind many friends and her wonderful family that includes 10 grandchildren, 3 whose deaths preceded Ginny's. You can only imagine the joy in heaven when Grandma reunited with Michael, Abigail, and Ariana. Thomas Halloran Watson was born on April 5th of 1931 and died on September 28 at the age of 88. Raised in Fort Hamilton, New York, Tom and his family moved to South Florida in 1957. He attended Palm Beach Junior College before transferring to Florida State, where he graduated with a bachelor's degree in history and social studies. He then enrolled at the University of Alabama, where he earned his master's degree. After teaching at Brevard High School in North Carolina, he returned to Palm Beach County, where he met his wife, Sue, while both were teaching at Revere Beach High School. They married in '63, spent the next 30 years raising their sons, Richard and TJ, while Tom taught at Palm Beach Gardens High School and Sue taught over at Cardinal Newman. Although they attended Trinity Methodist, they decided to check out St. Mark's, as Sue had been raised Episcopalian. They loved it, and they immediately jumped ship, came over here. Tom was an usher, he was a Eucharistic visitor, but his real love was actually academic. Not only did he complete Education for Ministry, this 4-year course, Tom was also one of my first regulars at a Wednesday evening Rector's Bible study when I arrived 12 years ago. I will always remember Tom asking the hardest questions of anyone in the group. And I also remember Tom asking those questions from a deep love of our Lord and an earnest desire to know Jesus better and better. Tom died at home in the loving care of Sue after a long decline over the past 5 years. Other saints whose families could not be with us this morning are Lillian Aver Cassidy, Daphne Woods Kress, Judy Miracle Richards, William Griffiths, Ronald Lee Sturpak, and Meryl Leone Stage. I now invite you to stand, if you would, and to name before God, either silently or aloud, those saints in your life who helped to form you into the person who is standing this day. You might have recorded their names in the book of the dead. There are just too many for us to read every one of those names, but they sit on the altar. May you remember them before God with grateful hearts for the gift of their presence.
Father of all, we pray for those we love, see no longer. Grant them your peace. Let light perpetual shine upon them, and in your loving wisdom and almighty power, work in them the good purpose for your perfect will. May their souls and the souls of all the faithful departed, through the mercy of God, rest in peace. Amen.